Have you ever realized that some of the most unforgettable figures in pop culture were living a truth the world wasn't ready to see? Today, we're exploring 8 famous transgender icons whose lives unfolded under the brightest spotlight. From fashion and film to sports and social media, their journeys are bold, complicated, and deeply human. These aren't just headlines or labels, they're stories of courage, reinvention, and visibility. Stay with us, because each story challenges what fame really means. Candy Darling was never meant to be invisible. In the heart of 1960s New York, she emerged as a dazzling figure in Andy Warhol's underground scene, standing at the intersection of art, rebellion, and identity. Candy was glamorous, dramatic, and unapologetically feminine at a time when being transgender was not just misunderstood, it was dangerous. Born James Slattery, Candy transitioned in a world that had no language for acceptance. Yet she demanded to be seen not as a curiosity, but as a woman worthy of beauty, romance, and stardom. On screen, in films like Flesh and Women in Revolt, Candy didn't play a joke or a stereotype. She played herself, longing, elegant, and heartbreakingly real. Here is the part that still shocks decades later. Despite her influence on pop culture, Candy was denied the simple dignity of recognition. Media outlets referred to her as a spectacle, roles were limited, and behind the scenes, she struggled with poverty, illness, and isolation. When she was diagnosed with leukemia, the world that once watched her shine largely looked away. Candy died in 1974, at just 29 years old. But her impact never faded. She inspired generations of transgender women to claim femininity on their own terms. She challenged rigid ideas of gender long before society was willing to listen. Candy Darling was not ahead of her time. She was exactly where she needed to be, forcing the world to confront a truth it tried to ignore. Pete Burns was never interested in fitting into the world. He wanted to disrupt it. As the lead singer of the band Dead or Alive, Pete became a global icon in the 1980s with the hit song You Spin Me Round. His voice was unforgettable, but his appearance was impossible to ignore. At a time when pop stars were expected to be clearly masculine or feminine, Pete rejected the binary entirely. He openly identified as gender-nonconforming, long before the language existed to explain it. Makeup, androgynous fashion, cosmetic surgery, Pete used his body as a statement, challenging society's rigid ideas of gender, beauty, and identity. Here is where the story becomes shocking. Pete was celebrated for being different, yet relentlessly mocked, dissected, and dehumanized by the same media that profited from his image. His appearance became a punchline. His humanity became secondary. The line between self-expression and public exploitation slowly disappeared. Despite the criticism, Pete never apologized for who he was. He spoke openly about identity, fluidity, and the pain of living in a body constantly judged by others. While he did not identify as transgender in today's terms, his visibility helped pave the way for broader conversations about gender beyond labels. Pete Burns died in 2016. But his legacy lives on. He proved that visibility itself can be revolutionary. His life reminds us that sometimes the most radical act is refusing to explain yourself to a world that demands simplicity where none exists. Caroline Cossey's story feels less like celebrity gossip and more like a historical reckoning. In the 1970s and 1980s, she was one of the most successful fashion models in the world, appearing in major magazines and even a James Bond film. To the public, she embodied classic beauty, elegance, and glamour. What no one knew was that Caroline was living a truth that society was not prepared to accept. Then, everything shattered. In 1989, a British tabloid exposed Caroline as transgender without her consent. Overnight, her career collapsed. Contracts vanished. Doors slammed shut. The same industry that had celebrated her image now treated her existence as scandal. It was not just exposure, it was erasure. Here's the shocking truth that still resonates today. Caroline did nothing wrong. She did not lie. She did not deceive. She simply survived in a world that offered no protection for people like her. The outrage was never about honesty. It was about control, fear, and a society desperate to punish difference. Instead of disappearing, Caroline fought back. She wrote books, spoke publicly, and challenged the media narrative that tried to define her as a scandal instead of a human being. Her courage helped push conversations about privacy, gender identity, and dignity into the public sphere long before such discussions were common. Caroline Cossey's legacy is not just historical. It is a warning. Visibility without protection can be dangerous, and her story reminds us. Jazz Jennings became a household name long before most people could even spell the word transgender. As a child, Jazz appeared on national television, introducing millions of Americans to a conversation that was rarely spoken out loud. She wasn't an actor playing a role or a celebrity chasing fame. She was simply a young girl asking to be understood. Born transgender, Jazz's story unfolded publicly in real time. Her reality series, I Am Jazz, allowed viewers to witness not just milestones, but moments of doubt, fear, joy, and resilience. For many families across the United States, Jazz was the first transgender person they truly got to know, not through headlines, but through everyday life. What made Jazz's impact so powerful was her honesty. She spoke openly about body image, mental health, bullying, and the pressure of growing up under constant public scrutiny. Her journey showed that being transgender isn't a trend or a headline. It's a lived experience, often complicated and deeply emotional. Beyond television, Jazz became a national advocate for transgender youth, speaking before political leaders and using her platform to promote acceptance and understanding. She challenged stereotypes not with anger, but with vulnerability and courage. Today, Jazz Jennings stands as one of the most influential transgender figures in modern media. Her story didn't just change perceptions, it shaped an entire generation's understanding of identity, empathy, and what it means to grow up being unapologetically yourself. Carmen Carrera's story is not about overnight fame. It is about what happens after the cameras turn away. Many viewers first noticed her on RuPaul's Drag Race, where her beauty and confidence immediately stood out. But behind the applause, Carmen was navigating a reality far more complicated than the show could capture. When Carmen came out publicly as a transgender woman, she expected honesty to bring freedom. Instead, it brought silence. Casting calls stopped. Promising opportunities quietly disappeared. Even in spaces that celebrated self-expression, she was suddenly seen as too much, too visible, too inconvenient. That contradiction became the most painful part of her journey. Here is the moment that shocks most people. Carmen was praised for her looks, yet repeatedly told she did not fit Hollywood's idea of a leading woman. She was invited to inspire conversations, but rarely invited to participate fully. Her body, her past, and her identity became public property, analyzed and debated by strangers who never had to carry the consequences. Rather than retreat, Carmen spoke out. She confronted the fashion and entertainment industries about tokenism, discrimination, and the emotional cost of conditional acceptance. Her voice helped push conversations beyond visibility and toward dignity. Today, Carmen Carrera stands as a symbol of resilience. Her story reminds us that being seen is not the same as being respected, and sometimes survival itself is the most radical form of courage, especially when the world refuses compassion. Jessica Alves is one of the most controversial and talked about transgender figures in modern pop culture. Long before she came out as transgender, the world already knew her, just not for the reasons it would later understand. Branded by the media as the human Ken doll, Jessica became famous for undergoing dozens of cosmetic surgeries in pursuit of a hyper-idealized image of masculinity. But behind the headlines, the obsession, and the extreme transformations was a deeper truth, one that surgery alone could never fix. Here's where the story takes a sharp turn. After more than 70 cosmetic procedures, multiple health scares, and years of living under intense public scrutiny, Jessica reached a breaking point. In 2020, she publicly came out as transgender, revealing that the body she had tried so desperately to perfect was never truly hers to begin with. The shock wasn't just the transition, it was the realization that her earlier transformation was actually a form of survival. Jessica's announcement sparked massive media attention, debate, and backlash. Some questioned her motives, others mocked her past. But what many failed to see was the emotional cost of denying one's identity for decades. For Jessica, transitioning wasn't about attention, it was about relief. Since coming out, she has spoken openly about gender dysphoria, mental health, and the dangers of chasing perfection instead of truth. Her story forces an uncomfortable question. How far can someone go trying to become someone they're not? Jessica Alves remains a polarizing figure, but also a powerful reminder that authenticity, no matter how late it arrives, can be life-saving. Her journey isn't easy to watch, but it's impossible to ignore. Gigi Gorgeous represents a turning point in how the internet changed transgender visibility forever. Long before mainstream media was ready to listen, Gigi pressed record and let the world watch her truth unfold unfiltered and in real time. Born as Gregory Lazzarato, Gigi began her YouTube career sharing beauty tutorials and lifestyle content. At first, it looked like any other rising influencer story, but then everything shifted. In 2013, Gigi came out as transgender, and instead of stepping away from the spotlight, she invited millions of viewers into the most personal chapter of her life. What followed wasn't polished or perfect. It was raw, emotional, sometimes painful. Gigi documented fear, excitement, uncertainty, and self-discovery with a level of honesty rarely seen online. For countless young viewers, she became the first transgender person they ever truly connected with. Not as a headline, but as a human being. Here's what made Gigi's impact shocking. She didn't wait for permission from Hollywood, networks, or institutions. She built her platform herself. And in doing so, she proved that visibility no longer needed a gatekeeper. As her influence grew, Gigi moved beyond YouTube, appearing in major media outlets, fashion campaigns, and her own documentary, This Is Everything, Gigi Gorgeous. Yet even with fame, her story remained deeply personal. Gigi Gorgeous changed the conversation by showing that transition isn't a moment, it's a journey. And sometimes, the bravest thing you can do is let the world see you becoming who you truly are. Patricio Manuel made history not on a red carpet or a movie screen, but in a boxing ring. In a world where strength is often defined by rigid ideas of masculinity, Patricio challenged those ideas with every punch he threw. Before transitioning, he competed as a successful amateur boxer. But inside, he was fighting a much harder battle, living in a body that never felt like his own. When Patricio came out as a transgender man, many believed his boxing career was over. The sport is known for tradition, toughness, and resistance to change. But Patricio refused to walk away. Instead, he pushed forward, determined to compete as his authentic self. In 2018, he became the first openly transgender man to fight professionally in the United States. Here is what makes his story truly shocking. Patricio didn't just step into the ring to prove a point. He stepped in knowing every move would be scrutinized, every victory questioned, and every loss politicized. His body, his strength, and his right to compete became public debates. Yet he remained focused, disciplined, and unshaken. Beyond boxing, Patricio has become a powerful advocate for transgender visibility in sports. He speaks openly about fairness, identity, and the emotional cost of constantly having to justify one's existence. His presence forces difficult conversations, but necessary ones. Patricio Manuel's legacy is about more than sports. It's about courage, about claiming space where none was offered, and about proving that authenticity, even in the most unforgiving arenas, is its own kind of strength. These 8 stories remind us that being visible often comes at a cost, especially in a world that resists change. Each of these individuals faced scrutiny, rejection, and misunderstanding, yet chose authenticity over silence. Their lives didn't just challenge norms, they reshaped culture, history, and the way we understand identity today. If any of these stories moved you, share your thoughts in the comments. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video with someone who believes in empathy, courage, and the power of living your truth.